Hello, everyone, and welcome to Body Bags. I'll be your reviewer for today. I'm Lonnie from Horror Heaven 77, filling in. And the movie that I want to talk about today is an Alfred Hitchcock movie that I really love. I very personally enjoy this movie, and I think it's a great suspense thriller. And it's one of the movies that Hitchcock did that I don't really hear too many people talk about, but I really enjoy. And the movie that I'm going to talk about is Rope. The movie stars Jimmy Stewart and Farley Granger and John Dahl and Cedric Hardwicke. And the movie is, I think it's a very interesting movie personally. It, usually like when people talk about like Hitchcock, they talk about him in horror documentaries or suspense thriller documentaries. Usually the two movies most people, would talk about when they mention Hitchcock would be, obviously Psycho and The Birds. And maybe once in a while somebody would bring up something like Rear Window or maybe Frenzy. But Rope is, a really good film that like I said, I just don't hear too many people talk about it. And I just thought it was an interesting idea to do a review on this one. The story is very loosely based on the Leopold Loeb murder case. And you got our two leads. You got Brendan, played by John Dahl, and you got Philip, played by Farley Granger. Now, the story of Leopold and Loeb, they were two school students, and they had this idea that, that they were of like superior. They were people of superior breeding, kind of superior ilk, and they had learned, or that that there were people out there who were inferior, and therefore they should be killed, and so they murdered one of their schoolmates, and they ended up getting caught, going to jail. They made another movie on this subject too, called Compulsion, with Orson Welles and Dean Stockwell. I forget who else was in it, but yeah, the movie, this movie here, Rope, is loosely based on that. Now, one thing that's really interesting, and if you've heard anything about this movie, it is kind of the main thing is like Hitchcock really tried to do the movie as one long continuous take. And obviously he couldn't do that, not at the time. Today, you could probably get away with that a little bit easier, even if you didn't do the movie as one complete take. The way the way advances in filmmaking and stuff are nowadays, you could get away with that a lot easier. Even if you didn't do the movie in one complete take, you can use like digital effects and things like that to make it appear as if the movie is done in one continuous long take. But Hitchcock, obviously he couldn't do that. So it's like, there would be, so what they would do is an interesting process. Like they would have the actors basically perform the entire story as if they were, like rehearsing a play. And then what they would do is they would go through like an entire 10-minute, basically a long 10-minute take. And Hitchcock, what he would do is he would tell them, okay, like at this point, you're going to move here and say this line, or you're going to move over there. Then you're going to sit down and say this line or whatever else. He would like very meticulously, methodically plan the whole thing out from beginning to end. And then he would work with, the camera crew and sound crew and everything to, make sure that everything got filmed. And, so they did it. And it was a long process making the movie, because they would have many, many situations where, like something would go wrong, like a technical issue, something with the camera or sound, or, like an actor would forget their lines or miss their mark or something like that. So they would have to go and start over and do the entire, because, the roll of film was, would run for 10 minutes. So, so say like if they were 7 minutes in, it was exhausting because say like they were 7 minutes in, something would happen. They would have to go all the way back and start all the way from the beginning and do the whole thing over again. But you could tell like when you could tell when it was getting ready to switch reels, because normally like what would happen is say like an actor would turn with their back to the camera would like zoom in on it, and the idea is kind of like black it out so you could get the cut, and then like it would pull, either the camera would pull out or it would pull up, and it would continue into the next reel of film, and it would go on for another 10 minutes. So this was an interesting way this movie was filmed, and honestly, this movie, it's incredibly well done. It's very well done. You got great story. Like I said, I got off base because I started talking about the technical aspect of it. I apologize. I digress. Anyway, so the movie opens. You got this kind of very bright, sunny day, and you got this kind of cheery music and everything else, which kind of lulls you into this false sense of security, which I think is kind of interesting. And then as soon as the score is over, the opening credits roll. By the way, interesting little tidbit. The movie was actually co-written by actor Hume Cronin. Now, everybody knows Hume Cronin from movies like, Barry's Not Included and, so much stuff, Cocoon and all this kind of stuff. He's married to Jessica Tandy and everything. Hume Cronin actually helped write the script for the movie. So I thought that was pretty interesting. And he had actually worked with Hitchcock in other movies too, like was it Shadow of a Doubt, things like that. So I know I keep going off on these tangents. I promise I will explain what the movie's about. But anyway, so like I said, you're kind of lulled into this false sense of security, and then the camera pans. You see this window, then you hear a man's blood curdling scream, and then it goes inside to the building or into this apartment where you see this young man named David. He's just been murdered by Philip and Brendan, and we realize that the entire reason why they murdered David was just because they wanted to know what it was like. And that's kind of one of the most chilling things of it, in the first place. Like they just wanted to know, well, what's it like to kill somebody? How do you do it? It's like, what would it feel like? And things like that. So they get done and they strangle him with a rope. Hence the title of the movie, Rope. And, they have this big trunk in the living room. And so what they do is they stuff David's body into this trunk with the ideas that later on in the evening, that they're going to, they're going to get rid of the body, dispose of it. But for now, they're kind of stuck with it. So there's a lot of suspense going out there the entire movie because, you keep wondering, like, is somebody going to catch on? Like, at some point, is somebody going to come along and like pop open that trunk and it's revealed that David's dead body is in there. So they're trying to calm down. Brendan offers them champagne. And then we realize that, the audacity of these characters, because we come to find out that, hey, guess what? Not only did they just murder David, but Brendan is throwing a dinner party for, several people, like some of their college friends and things like that. And they're going to, and actually David's mother and father. And that's the thing, and Brendan is like, he's all going on about how, this is a masterpiece of murder because, we killed him and then we're going to have his parents come over for dinner and they're never going to know that we murdered him and all this other kind of stuff. And then, they start talking about their schoolmaster, Rupert Cadell, who's played by Jimmy Stewart. And we come to find out that actually Jimmy Stewart, even though he's the lead and ultimately he kind of emerges as something of a heroic character at the end of the movie, throughout most of the movie, though, we find out like he is kind of a bad guy in the sense that he's the one who taught Philip and Brendan this philosophy that they have, that there are people out there who are inferior of living and that they should be killed, and that there's a select group of more best pedigree people who deserve to live and everything. And so basically Jimmy Stewart was the one who kind of put all this idea into these guys' heads, and that's what made them decide to go ahead and kill David. So in a way, Jimmy Stewart is something of a villain in this movie, which is kind of interesting. So, they decide that they're going to have their dinner party. They have I forget the housekeeper's name. But anyway, so she's kind of running around. She's kind of a funny character. And they have this, big dinner table set up and everything else. Well, Brandon gets another brilliant idea. It's like, hey, you know what? Why don't we serve dinner on top of the trunk? That would make it more interesting. It's like, how interesting would it be that we serve David's parents the how interesting would it be that we served dinner to David's family on top of the trunk, which is essentially going to be David's coffin anyway. And so, it's kind of, you see, there's kind of a lot of macabre, kind of disturbing ideas that they have in this movie. And so the movie progresses, and then you have, like some of their friends show up, like one of their friends, Kenneth, and one of their friends, Janet, who the thing is Brendan is basically trying to play matchmaker. He didn't, for some reason, we don't even know really why. It's never really explained why, but Brendan did not like the fact that Janet, who was once with Kenneth, they were together, but they broke up, and then she started dating David, and David is like very eager to marry her and wants to be with her and stuff like that. And but Brendan did not like the idea of Janet being with David. So he's trying to set it up so she'll start dating Kenneth again. And then so David's father comes, but David's mother is too sick, so he brings along, I believe it's her sister. So they come to the dinner party, and then finally Jimmy Stewart arrives, and then they're having their dinner and all this kind of stuff, and they're talking, and there's all kinds of suspense building. There's all kind of creating tension, which I mean, we know Hitchcock was the genius of that sort of thing. And there are moments where like I said, you think that somebody's going to come along and open that trunk, and is somebody going to find out? Is Philip? We find out you got the two guys, Brendan and Philip. Brendan is kind of the more cool, collected one. He's not the one. He's the one who's not really like not affected by the murder so much. Whereas Philip more is. You could tell like Philip is, he's the guy who's going to crack. He's not holding it together very well. And if I understand in the real story of Leopold and Loeb, it was a similar situation where one of the young men was very kind of cocky and confident. He didn't think about it. He was kind of a sociopath, just no feeling, no emotion to it whatsoever. It was just a thing that they did. Whereas the other one was more bothered by his conscience, and he hated the fact that it happened. Really wanted to take the whole thing back, that kind of a thing. And so as they're having their dinner and stuff like that, Jimmy Stewart as Rupert, he kind of starts explaining his whole philosophy about the privilege murdering the weak and all that kind of stuff. And then we find out David's father is appalled by the whole thing. But we kind of realize that like, well, kind of Rupert just kind of meant it as more of like just a an offbeat dinner conversation. He didn't really he wasn't really like too into this whole thing. And then but throughout the course of the movie, people keep we need to phone David. Can you phone him at his place? Can you phone his mother? Can you phone, hey, there's a friend. Maybe they might know where he is. And, as the movie progresses, everybody's getting more and more worried about where is David, because, David is pretty punctual. He's, usually on time, all that kind of stuff. Punctual, on time, same thing. But so anyway, as the movie goes along, Philip is starting to crack. He's not handling it very well. He's very nervous. You could tell he's drinking a lot and everything else. And then, Jimmy Stewart as Rupert, he's starting to put the pieces together. He's all like, wait a minute. So David's not here. Everybody's wondering where he is. This is not like David at all. Let's see here. Brendan and Philip seem like they're acting kind of weird. Something's going on. And then as the movie goes on, he's putting it together, and he's starting to realize like something really horrible has happened. And then we get to a big finale, and you get some great acting. I mean, just perfect acting. Like the actress who plays Janet, she does a great job. It's like she's talking about like, she's a very likable character. She's talking about like, she says something and the guys laugh. She's like, wow, am I funny? I didn't know. It's like when I try to be funny, I tell the worst joke ever and stuff like that. And then, we come to find out that like, actually, like Brendan in his mind thinks that Janet was the one who broke up the relationship with Kenneth, which we find out actually is the other way around. Kenneth was the one who broke it off with Janet. Jimmy Stewart, still great actor, top of his game. wonderful performance. I mean, if you like him in other Hitchcock movies like Rear Window stuff, you're gonna love him in this. He gives this great speech. You know, he's all like, because they're talking about like the whole, you know, privilege murdering the unprivileged and all this kind of stuff, and he gives this whole great speech by, you made me ashamed of every concept I ever had. It's all like, by what right do you dare say that there's a select group of people that you belong to, but other people, it's like, you know, why do you think that a boy like David should be murdered or whatever? It's like, do you think you're God? And stuff. He gives this great speech. I don't want to. I've already gave too much away, but anyway. So anyway, yeah, that's pretty much about it. I highly recommend this movie. There's a lot of great suspense. Of course, it's a Hitchcock movie. It came out in the 60s, so there's not really blood or gore or any of that kind of stuff. You don't really have a lot of that in there. But it's really intense. It keeps you on the edge of your seat. The acting is phenomenal. It's a very interesting film from a technical standpoint because, like I said, you have these long drawn out 10-minute takes. Because, like I said, they tried to do the movie almost as if it was one continuous take and everything. So it's a very technically well made film, and I highly recommend it. So that's pretty much going to do it. So yeah, if you love Hitchcock movies, you love suspense thrillers. If you haven't seen it, I definitely recommend Rope. I think you're going to really enjoy it. So anyway, so that's pretty much going to do it. So if anybody took the time to watch this, I thank you for doing it, and I appreciate you for doing it. I honestly hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please like the video. If you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe to the Body Bags channel. We have a different reviewer for every day of the week. I'm the Saturday reviewer. Everybody's doing great stuff. Everybody's making great videos. We're having fun. We're doing theme weeks. We started doing label weeks. We just got done with Severin. We got Killer Animals coming up, so that's going to be fun to do. So yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun, and check everybody out. So take care, and everybody have a good night. I'll see you later. Bye bye.